Welcome to Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan, a podcast about the art and hobby of miniature painting. I'm Mike.
And I'm Dan. Thank you very much for joining us for our continued journey to become better, braver, happier painters.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, Dan. And we're back. Wow, man, that was really weird having over a month off.
Yeah, I didn't feel like a month, but then at the same time, it feels like a long month. But it went too quickly. So what have you been doing with all that free time, Mike?
Strangely enough, I've been painting. Painting. I've painted like I've never painted before.
As in, you painted well?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. That's pushing it. Don't go that far. But actually, I finished up some projects and started some new ones. I mean, we always got to remember the original motto. We suck at painting, so you don't have to. I also took my first attempt at a quasi-commission as well, which we can talk about more at the end.
A quasi-moto commission? Or what's a crap as a...
Actually, that's not that far off. No, I just agreed to do a commission with Crimson Field Games. They wanted 2 centerpieces for a Slanesh army in exchange for store credit. And so I'm painting the Sigvald the Magnificent and, like you said, the Hunchback, the Lord of Gluttony. It's called I don't know what the chariot's called, but I just call it the Sexy Demon Wagon, because it's or the wagon, demon wagon of sex.
I was about to say the Chariot of Love, but yeah, I think you beat me on the better name there.
That's all good.
Yep, that's pretty cool. So I'm sure you will keep us posted on how that's going.
So what have you been up to, man?
Oh, geez. Well, let's see. I actually took a break, so I hadn't touched any of my paints since before our last show, which is all right. I've been reading a couple comic books, which is something that I enjoy when I'm not trying to paint. I have a Battleship Yamato that's sitting on my desk that wants cannons to be put on it. And I think we talked about me losing that one little piece. So I'm still frustrated about this little teeny weeny piece that I missed that kind of distracts from the entire ship. So I will, I don't know. I'll continue it at some point. I washed the car when it was warm a couple days ago. And
yeah, we got up to 80 at one point. It was crazy.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how to contain my enthusiasm with all this warm, but now it's cold again. So I don't know. Unlike you people out there in Denver, that's like freaking 3 feet of snow when you're not supposed to get it this time of year. But hey, better you than me.
Yeah, our friend Michael Proctor was posting pictures of it. He lives out in Colorado. He's posting pictures of that amount of snow. It's kind of crazy. And just a small plug, he'll be on the show again in the next couple of weeks.
What?
And guess what? Dan's on the interview too. It's crazy. It's mayhem. It's something that we don't normally do, right?
Yeah, that's my my once a year interview. So
well, you got that out of the way early, man.
Yeah, I had to get it done, and I had so much fun. It was like I did it twice.
There was no throwing Mike under the bus. There was it.
No mics to throw under the bus.
So today, we're supposed to be focused on another genre episode, and this time it's one of my absolute favorite, which is Irish folklore.
Well, Mike, this is your heritage, so why don't you just go ahead and get us started?
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. Now, when people say the words Irish folklore, probably the first thing that comes to their mind are leprechauns and fairies. Those are all out there in Irish folklore and such, but other key characters that pop into a lot of other people's minds too was, of course, one of our favorite artists, Banshees, are very much an Irish thing. One of the coolest things that I found out, though, when doing even more research into it was, Dan, did you know that the legend of Sleepy Hollow is either based on or awfully similar to that of the Dullahan, which is also a type of headless horseman in Irish literature?
No, you're going to have to fill me in on that one then.
Well, honestly, there's not a lot of difference. The guy was first written about in Irish history riding on a black horse. He used a human spine as a whip, which I thought for people in our line of hobby That's right up the alley, using a spine whip. And he carried the head under his arm, and but some of the differences were kind of he had, like, I think Irish described his skin as moldy cheese. And it said when the Doulahan stops riding, that's where the unfortunate soul is going to die. And when he calls their name, they fall down dead on the spot. So you certainly want to definitely have a different online username that you could not get caught with. So the Doulahan, man, that's such an Irish name as well. Like, oh no, what's coming after us? It's the Doulahan.
Wow, you even do the accent? Yeah.
Oh man, I grew up with it, man. I had my grandfather was Irish, and he lived with us. And after about midway through the day, once he finished his first 12 pack, he couldn't understand a damn thing he said.
Yeah.
Way to unpack your family baggage on the air, Mike.
All
Anyways.
right. Yeah. So we talked about a fairy, we talked about a leprechaun, and then this Doulahan dude. And so what else? What other kind of things you had to throw at us?
Well, actually, one of the things I wanted to talk about is something most people don't know about Irish folklore. And that is that it's broken up in it's broken up into four different cycles: the mythological, the Fenian, the Ulster, and the historical cycle. Now, they're all a little bit different and cover kind of different time periods. Like the mythological cycle is made up mostly of stories about former gods and kind of the beginning of Ireland and the Irish. And probably one story that some people who are a little more familiar with Irish mythology would hear about is called The Children of Lear. And it's a story about a stepmother's jealousy over her four children that she turned into swans. And it turned into swans, and it kind of, it has that total Irish feel of the way it plays out. So that kind of comes from that time period, and it's kind of one of those sad stories of jealousy and things along those lines, and ultimately about a father's love for his children. But the mythological cycle is the one that they have like the least preserved information on. There are a couple of books out there. I think one of them is called the Book of Invasions, and then there's the Metrical Dinshananas book. But that's all really technical details. But anyways, the point is four different cycles. The first one mythological. The second one is Fenian, and it's also referred to as the Finn cycle or Fenian tales. And it's based around kind of Irish mythological hero, Finan Mac Cumhale and his warriors. These different warriors who perform deeds and such throughout Ireland, etc., whether or not they were real or not. I guess the most famous story is the Salmon of Wisdom. That's part of the cycle. This is when Fionn is admitted to the High Court of the High Kings at Tara after passing 3 tests. He becomes the leader of a clan. Then he went on to be the leader of the Finian. I always mess up this one. Iron, after killing a goblin by the name of Aileen Mac Migna. So on and so forth. That's a little bit too much, but basically he used a magic spear and it left him immune to different spells and music, and was able to kill a goblin. Which, the reason I brought that up is because the word goblin was in there, and so it's kind of a universal. Goblin is a universal demon, and even in Irish folklore there are many different descriptions of goblins. So later when we talk for a couple minutes about the actual miniatures, there may not be specifically like an Irish goblin miniature, but you certainly in an Irish campaign could adapt a kobold or something else if you were playing D&D or such. The Ulster cycle is about legends and heroes of Uliad, which is the eastern Ulster and northern Leinster provinces of Ireland. They are written in different manuscripts from the medieval period, but some stories date back to the early Christians in Ireland. And the most important story is that of the cattle raid of Cooley. The story tells a war against Ulster by the Queen Connacht Mebd and her husband. They set out to steal a stud bull by the name of Don Cullinage. I mean, so part of the reason why I'm going into some of these cycles is that there's some interesting stories. Like some things may not be like the concept of vampire we've talked about a little bit, but never done a show on. Is across cultures there's a vampire like folklore. Excuse me. And so some of these things, and even in Irish folklore, kind of go across. And then there's a historical cycle, finally, which is kind of the medieval period in Ireland, where a lot of bards and poets would record the history of the family or king they served. And they did these poems of mixed mythological and history, resulting in stories that make up the cycle. And so that's kind of the spoken word part of the Irish cycles of mythology. Now, all throughout all four cycles, you have things like fairies and leprechauns and such, which is kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. So let me ask you this question. Are leprechauns evil, Dan?
Only if you find their gold.
Aha, right. So leprechauns really, this is kind of true with a lot of Irish folklore. This is also true in fairies as well. Most of the time, the characters are kind of neutral. There are some good, there are some evil, but most of the time they're kind of neutral. Leprechauns are only bad if you steal their gold. Then they try to come get it from you, and the person who has the gold, it's destined for bad things. Which is interesting because they know it and they still try to steal the gold and bad things happen to them. So kind of the hubris of man that they would be able to continue stealing the gold even though they know bad things happen. What is the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result, right? The same thing is true with fairies. There's a lot of different fairy folklore out there, and I don't want to do too much on it because I can't. The pronunciations of the words are going to be horrendous to listen to on a podcast. So let's just say some of the myths are basically leaving different types of things out on your windowsill, part of your crops, and things along those lines, and the fairies will bless you. If you don't, like you make bread the day, you leave bread out on the windowsill for a fairy to have, and then they bless your wheat crop or the health of your family. But if you don't share your wealth with the fairies, then of course there's a risk of all kinds of damage that they could do to you and your family. Death, sickness, wreck your crops, destroy your home, a house fire, etc. That's throughout Irish folklore, is that kind of neutral lesson about share your wealth. And you know what I'm saying, it's kind of that moral lesson of like, share it, don't hoard all of your wealth and your success to yourself. But those are kind of the main thing. I don't want to do go crazy on it because we could, like, people write dissertations on not only each cycle but each aspect of every character. Like there are dissertations written on leprechauns. You know, 400 page books written on the history of leprechauns and things along those lines. So there are some other really cool stories out there from Irish folklore that I feel are very important to touch on. One of which is people may not know this is an Irish story or know the name of it, but most people have heard some version of this type of a story, which is Finn McCool. He was the son of the leader of a place called Fianna, and he famously and accidentally gained all the knowledge in the world. There was a magical salmon in the River Boyne that was said to hold all the knowledge, and Finn was supposed to cook it for the chief poet. I guess his name is, if I remember correctly, Finnegas. And Finnegas burned his finger while cooking and instinctively put it in his mouth to cool the burn. A small piece of that burned salmon entered his mouth and a light flashed, and Finn instantly knew all about the past, present, and could tell the future. So there are different, you know, in multiple different cultures, there's lots of different information or different stories about like kind of gaining the knowledge of the world and the damage and the risk of knowledge. Even back to Greek mythology, you could argue that is what Pandora's box is. The letting loose all the things, the evils of the world with all the knowledge of the world at the same time. And just so people know that I am getting some of my information from Irish Central. So another one thing that everybody sees throughout Irish history and lore and everything is the shamrock. And it has become the symbol of Ireland. There are so many different meanings and purposes of shamrocks, even from druids who believed that they were in and of themselves sacred and kept evil away and used to ward off different spirits. The Celts were very big on the number 3, and therefore the shamrocks had a unique value to them because they're 3 heart-shaped leaves. And it's also believed that at some point St. Patrick used shamrocks in order to explain religious concepts such as the Holy Trinity. But they're just, they ultimately too. They're beautiful plants. They're a lot of fun.
They make great shakes.
They make fantastic shakes. Little mint on, a little minty background on it, for sure. Which I wonder if they use real shamrocks. What do you think? No.
I think they use leprechauns.
No. So I got to tell my middle child that those are not vegetarian.
Or the salmon of wisdom.
You're not getting the salmon of wisdom in McDonald's, Dan. That's called a cholesterol.
The filet-o-fish.
The filet-o-fish, right.
All right, I wonder if Mr. Coors. Wonder if McDonald's was Ronald was Irishman. Oh, he's got that bright red hair.
Well, what's his name? Ray.
When it Cook
Ray
or Coke?
No, not Coke.
Are you sure? I think he was a Coke.
Maybe he was a Coke, but
I don't know. I'm sure somebody out there will tell us where we're wrong.
Tell us we're wrong, please. Listening to painttry@gmail.com.
Who started McDonald's?
Right. Well, it's Ray something. Yeah. So, but you know what, Dana? The one I have.
Croc. He made Crocs also, the shoes. So he made McDonald's, and he had the Irish clown, the filet-o-fish of wisdom, the Shamrock Shake, and then Crocs.
Don't forget about
shoes named after him.
Don't forget about the most important invention.
I don't know.
The McRib.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh, yeah, we're going to tie that to St. Patrick because we're going to go to Adam and Eve where he used the rib.
No.
And then we're going to eat the rib. We're going to eat the rib with the McRib.
No. There's no bone in it, so you're going to just take the meat off of it and shape it like a rib.
There we go.
All right. It really be remiss if I didn't mention St. Patrick himself, considering it's St. Patrick's Day. He was an apostle of Ireland. Many people, he accomplished a lot of good things apparently, but of course, what do you think St. Patrick is believed to be his major accomplishment? Very similar to the German tale of the Pied Piper.
Didn't he get a bunch of children chase him around or something?
Well, that was no. Originally, the Pied Piper got the rats out, and then they didn't pay him, and then he led the children away. So you got to pay the pipe. That's what the phrase, you got to pay the piper. But this is St. Patrick is believed to have banished the snakes from Ireland.
Okay. Nope, sorry, I didn't know that one.
Anyways, regardless of that, St. Patrick's Day, it's what, everybody in the world becomes Irish for the day as a justification to get drunk and act stupid. At least to have a good time. And the last one I'm going to touch on, though, is we've had the namesake on our show, Banshee. But they're a little bit different named. They're called Bean Sidhe. And they're a supernatural being in Irish and Celtic folklore who basically they have a sad or mournful wail that at night that's believed to foretell the death of a member of a family or a person who had heard that spirit. And so the Irish were a little ethnocentric in their belief in that only banshees only warned families of pure Irish descent that something bad was going to happen. Now, there are different variations of banshees. Hell, you can even go to, what was that show on HBO, Raised by Wolves, the android cyborg thing that kills everybody it's called the Banshee. But
there was a show named Banshee. It was about a marshal that went around and killed drug dealers, I think.
There you go. Exactly. That's an Irish folklore as well. No, it wasn't. Yeah, they're taking those that warning signs way too quickly, way too seriously. But With all that being said, let's talk a little bit about pop culture and where they've kind of appeared. One of the main areas that, of course, the main things that appears is the leprechaun. And have you ever seen the Leprechaun movies, Dan?
Well, yes, I have.
Yes. It breaks my heart that they made the actor who plays Willow also be the leprechaun. I love Willow. But, the other...
Hey, you know what? He played a goblin also.
That's true. I mean, yeah.
In Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
And I'm sure he did something else. Didn't they stick him in CP3O or R2D2
that
or
would
something?
be R2D2. No, I don't think he's old enough for that.
Oh, I don't know.
You got to remember when when R2D2 came out, we were just kids, Was it 76, right? I can't imagine how much older he is than we are. I don't know. We'll have to look that up.
Heck, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I think it was 77 that Star Wars came out.
77, 76. Okay. I'm losing my nerd card. Anyways, the other major leprechaun that I wanted to talk about that I personally love, and I have very mixed feelings about the way they portray him on television as opposed to a book, is Mad Sweeney from American Gods. I am a huge fan of Neil Gaiman's work. And I particularly love American Gods. I've actually read it a few times. And then my wife likes to be read too. So I read her American Gods as well. And it's a fantastic story. That I'm not going to get too deep into what the story is about. But basically, if you could put it as somewhat of an adult version of Percy Jackson with a cross of all mythologies, not just focused on Greek and Roman. And so... basically, the story of Mad Sweeney is that he comes to America as traditions in Ireland are starting to die, and he also follows a woman who was kind to him. And so the people weren't leaving out bread for him or anything along those lines anymore in Ireland. So he was starving to death, and so he came over to the United States following a woman who had come over as an indentured servant and was very, very into those Irish folklore beliefs. And so there's kind of that backstory. And he's also, Mad Sweeney is enormous, not even teeny tiny. He is enormous in the American Gods story. He's a wicked fighter too. So that's it's an interesting take on that legend. That would be I would love that for Mad Sweeney to become somebody do a miniature of him. That would be amazing. A miniature of a leprechaun. Isn't that redundant? Haha. Another major Irish folklore movie that came out was in the animated world, and that was Brave. Have you ever seen Brave, Dad?
The Disney Brave movie?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. I know there are a lot of people who didn't, but I actually enjoyed the movie quite a bit, and they touched on a lot of different folklores. I believe there was witches and all types of different things touched on in the movie, which was just a lot of fun. And those are kind of the major ones that have been recent. So we could probably list about 100 movies that touch on certain aspects of Irish mythology, like The Secret of Ronan Inish. That has it in it. Mists of Avalon, arguably. So there's a lot of different, even some, anything that has fairies physically in it, you could argue is some touch into Irish folklore. But I don't want to bog us down on that stuff. What I want to get to is to talk about what we all love, which are the miniatures. So let me do this. So let's see. I've lost the Leprechaun fantasy football team. I forgot who did it. Oh, Cross Lances. Okay. They're so awesome. I totally need to get some of these guys. You haven't seen them, have you, Dan?
No.
Oh, they're so awesome.
What's the name of them again?
Look up Cross Lances. They had a Kickstarter for St. Patrick's Angry Leprechauns.
Cross lances, angry leprechauns.
Yeah. Just the front page of the Kickstarter is if I would have known about this live, I
Oh, that's pretty funny,
I would
man.
have totally been all over this. Anyways, so for the game like Blood Bowl or for Guild Ball, you could get a set of um, different leprechauns to be your team. I can't imagine how you would ever seriously be able to play that game because you'd be laughing and having too much fun looking at the actual miniatures. Those are they're amazing sculpts. I'm actually going to look into their late pledge because I think I just might need to hook
They
myself
say they're
up.
on Patreon, so maybe you can look at, and they're on CG Trader, so you can probably just order them. I bet this was STLs, so you
Yeah,
could order them and probably print them. I'll print them for you, Mike.
sure. When I'll get them about 2023.
Oh, you're expecting a lot there.
All right. Anyways, so another surprise. Another company that has a lot of miniatures that could be used across things in um, different areas and have specific leprechaun ones is Reaper Miniatures. They have banshees, they have goblins, they have fairies. They actually have 3 or 4 different leprechauns that are available. I'm not sure. I know they had 4 different leprechauns at one point, but 3 of them may not be. I only think 3 of them are available on their store anymore. Um, the bummer is there was an Irish folklore company that came out a few years ago, but they don't exist. They went out of business, called Shamrock Miniatures, and they had some great stuff on there. Now, there's also another one is called Blacksmith Miniatures, and they have some. Those are definitely if you're a figure painter, Blacksmith Miniatures is the way to go. They have some great ones. They don't necessarily always call them like a leprechaun or a fairy, but they certainly, if you looked at them, you could certainly paint them. Besides the fact you paint them however you want, but painting some of these as leprechauns, painting them as fairies in kind of an Irish sense would be easy to pull off. And those are kind of the major ones that we found. They're not. Occasionally there's one off. Searching leprechaun miniatures is a little bit tough because, especially right now, you have all the St. Patrick's Day stuff in the world, and probably the number one thing that comes up are the angry leprechaun Blood Bowl / Guild Ball players. And so, understandably why, because those are understandably why, because those are amazing. So kudos to Cross Lances for really kind of giving me a great chuckle with that. I really enjoyed looking at all the different variations of the players that they had. Some of them look like some of my family members.
You could also look up fairies if you're looking for figures. I'd imagine about 90% of them are not safe for work, but they exist through STL's 3D printing, which I think is actually kind of cool because if you do get the STLs, and one of the problems I think we have is as as miniature artist, well, especially at my level of talent, is painting fairy wings or any type of wings. There are some great examples of what people have been able to do. I am not capable of doing any of that. But which is kind of cool though, if you do have a 3D printer, you can print the wings clear and then you can use glazes if you want to, or contrast paint or whatever you need to. Keep them just clear. And it adds just a little bit more realism to it, I think, because they are see-through. You don't have to paint, just paint them all up. So, yeah, you have that. And I think that's kind of interesting and neat. But again, they're fairies, and there's probably a good chance they don't have any clothes on.
Dan, I would be. I totally forgot about one that I had seen ages ago. There is a limited edition Adara by Adara Aradia Miniatures. It's a fairy, and the reason why I recognize it is because I follow the guy who painted it, and that's Sergio Calvo, and it's breathtaking. And honestly, it would be if you even if you can't get a hold of the miniature, look up what is it? Let's see, Fairy by Aradia Miniatures. And it's something that's just totally inspirational. It's done by that was painted by Sergio Calvo Rubio, and it's just like that's just ridiculous. Now the other thing that's interesting though too. Okay, that's one thing to talk about is that, like you kind of touched on it, is that doing it if you have the ability to 3D print or are willing to pay somebody to print for you, it's not even. I'm like. There's companies like Cast and Play. They have entire fairy type armies. You could even make arguments that things like the Games Workshop Sylvaneth, which are kind of the wood elves, you could paint them certainly with an Irish earthy feel to them. So there's so many different variations of it. Plus, that's the other side of it, right? Irish folklore, the word fairy is kind of a I don't want to say a universal thing, but it's not. What fairies actually look like, we don't know, because they show up in human form, of some form of variation in human form, or with wings, etc. And so,
I don't know. That dude took those pictures back in the 1900s. There are a whole bunch of fairies there.
Maybe. And so, just leave it at I'm not touching that with a 10.
I guess we're gonna have to. I guess we'll have to put that as one of our remarks on the very bottom of this.
Right. The stuff, Dan.
People gonna start looking up. Just look up fairy, but no, don't look up any of that.
Yeah, don't.
We'll just look up the guy's name. We'll tell you at the end.
I'm gonna leave that to you.
I'm trying to find his name now.
There's also what was it, brother Vinny's, I want to say, has a fairy that's pretty cool, but also it's one of those.
It's probably a dude that's got a wiener down to his toes or something.
No, it is not. It's kind of the fairy types that you're more interested in.
I didn't say I was interested in it. It's just when I try to find a very tasteful Tinkerbell fairy figure, that just lots of other things come up, and I get a little distracted. That's not because I'm looking for them.
Fair enough, Dan. Fair enough. I'm going to leave it at that. So, anyways, but like I said, one of the good places to look for different types of fairies or leprechauns, things along those lines, is Etsy. I actually found quite a few that people own rights to different companies. They could print, like the one I'm looking at now is Creepy Prints, which is creepy with 3 E's. And they have.
Yep, I'm gonna look up for creepy. I'm gonna look up creepy prints
on Etsy. Absolutely, there's they have like a Sprite Fairy Pixie Fairy Premium 3D printed fantasy tabletop miniature, 28 to 100 millimeter. They even tell you can use it for Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, Dungeons and D&D, and D&D. So I'm not sure what the difference between D&D and D&D are, but my bet is something might be lost in the translation. Anyways, gorgeous looking miniatures, lots of fun. Let's see. I'm interested to see what type of price. Let's see what 54 mil. The 75 millimeter version of it is only $13. That's not bad.
Is it already printed and everything, or made? Or is that just an STL? That's pretty inexpensive.
It is. I can't tell. I'll have to look it up later. I don't want to sit here looking on this.
Yeah.
No, it says you'll receive a premium tabletop miniature.
No shit, really?
Post-processed until it has a perfect finish. The miniature is primed and ready to be painted and out of the box. No extra work is necessary. Disagree. Send it to me unprimed. Don't lay any primer on my stuff. Lay your fingers off of it.
Keep your fingers off of my fairies.
Exactly, sir. Exactly. All right. So we've kind of gone through that. One of the things that we need to talk about, though, is, and this is very simple, but it actually is a very enjoyable thing to do, and that's kind of paint in that Irish in an Irish color palette. And so since we are listening to paint dry, we should probably talk about colors. So surprising to everyone, an Irish kind of color palette's going to involve basically earth tones and lots of green and vibrant colors. I think it's a lot of fun to paint stuff in that kind of vibrant, full of life, lots of green. Green kind of gives you that feeling of spring and renewal, and so it's something you can have a lot of fun with. That's kind of different than necessarily the grim dark space marines or other type of characters. And so this type of painting, it could be a lot of fun and be a huge palette cleanser for you. Have you ever painted anything like a fairy or a leprechaun, Dan?
I think I did high elves a long time ago, but my colors weren't greens. That's about as close as I got.
Yeah, and I have a plastic ABS 3D print from a company called Baphomet Miniatures from a couple of years ago. It was the first 3D print I've ever bought. I've only bought a couple of them now at this point. And I was actually stunned how good the plastic print was. No striations, nothing. Is that what they call them? Where like you could see the different layers, the levels of printing. Is that striations or?
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna go with that because maybe I made that up.
That and mold lines.
They don't have mold lines, man.
Oh, that's right.
That's it's one of those things. It's like the bonus of the 3D print is you don't have to deal with the mold line, but you do have to deal with support removal, and then washing off any extra white crap that's left on it.
Resin.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. But actually, the one never mind. We'll talk about that at another point. But so it was a beautiful plastic print. It was, and I am definitely gonna. It's on my list of stuff to get painted soon, but I have a lot going on right now. So basically, earth colors, greens and browns. A lot of like I notice in a lot of Irish folklore art, things like vests and pants are greens and browns, and they always wear kind of an off-white cream linen clothing under it, maybe like a shirt, etc. That's kind of universal and kind of a medieval or earlier time period feel to it. Even you could argue you could grab some Hobbit models and paint them in Irish tones, etc. From Lord of the Rings, which by the way, I power watched all 3 of the movies because I had never seen them before a couple weeks ago. So, yay!
Really, it took you that long to watch them?
Yes.
Okay. That's all right.
That's the best answer I got. Yes.
No, that's cool. I figured for most people they would have seen it when it came out or when it came out on video. They're only like 20 years old or something.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't. They came out at a time in my life when I was broke, so going to the movies I couldn't really afford, and so.
Jeez! Now you're just laying it on thick, dude.
Oh my god, dude! No, when I got out of college and even all the way through, like the first house we purchased, we were broke. We were with 3 kids, man. We was scraping by, Yeah. I'm just to go to ReaperCon this year. I'm going to have to sell my soul. So, which we'll talk about in just a moment here. But, anyways, to kind of wrap up Irish folklore side of it, painting wise, yeah, definitely pick an earthen palette, and feel free with Irish stuff to go brighter and fun and vibrant. And make sure they're carrying some ale and there's some shamrocks on the bases, etc. And so I always enjoy painting stuff that's got a brighter feel to it. That's not always this kind of, sometimes in the world of contrast, you always have to do those extremes between light and dark. But it's always nice to kind of have vibrant colors too, and so you can have a lot of fun with an Irish color palette. Let's just say. So Dan, with all that stuff with the Irish stuff being done, why don't we move on to what's on our desks? And I'm going to
Okay.
let you start us out because I've been
I'll start.
babbling.
Well, I'll start because it's not a whole lot on my desk right now. So let's see. I have my uh, Star Blazers model that's halfway finished sitting on my desk. The Yamoto, if I even said that correctly. Um, and that's about it. I got some comic books on there. That doesn't count as hobbying. I'm taking a break. I need to take a mental break. It's just I don't have time to really do a whole lot because of real world stuff is in the way and it's just messing up everything. But I try to keep tabs on everything that's going on, and yeah, I'll get in there pretty soon. But really haven't been doing a whole lot that way. Just wait until the weather to warm up a little bit, and I can start priming everything black and put a base on them and be done with them, whatever I'm doing that week. So, yep, unfortunately, that's all I have going on right now, hobby wise. So I don't have time to do hobbies because bills got to be paid, and the boss wants me to do some more crap.
Oh
So
man!
hopefully she's not. Hopefully she's not listening.
I bet your boss doesn't even know you do a podcast, does she?
I said it in a meeting one day. I was like, "Hey, it's a good thing I'm not talking like this on my podcast," and then crickets, and so I just kept talking about crap.
Oh man! All right, so my desk is actually this is a kind of a crazy time period for me. That month and a little bit over a month off was really good. It rejuvenated my painting spirits. I'm sorry it didn't have the same impact on you. Then a lot of stuff's happened. I told you at the beginning of the show I agreed to do that Crimson Fields gaming commission. With that one, I want to say I'm about 60% on Sigvald, and I'm still putting that Demon Sex Chariot is a lot of pieces and a lot of mold lines and a lot of weird connections. So it has taken me a while. I think that one of the things I'm going to do to help pay for ReaverCon is take on some commissions for cash. I'm not going to agree to do commissions for things like that. That's just taking. I would have to really. If they had any hope of me painting something like that, it would have to come fully assembled, and they would get it back the way that they sent it to me. I would not make any cleanup or effort on it. It is a lot of cleanup. I mean, just doing the body of the chariot has taken 2 days to do all the cleanup on it, and I still haven't finished filling in gaps and putting the entirety of the chariot together yet. And it comes with 5 figures in it, plus 2 giant beastie things that are pulling it. So it's a lot more work than I want to put into doing commissions. So I posted pictures of my Sequitur Prime, which was my first committed attempt to non-metallic metal. And my explanation to people is just understand this. I have dabbled with non-metallic metals before here and there. I've always given up before I've completed any part of something that I would consider to be non-metallic metal. And so I've probably done it somewhere between 10 and 20 times, thrown my brush down in frustration, and painted something else. This time I committed beginning to end. It came out okay. I'm pretty happy with the result. Well, I posted pictures of it on Twitter and on Facebook, and lo and behold, Games Workshop saw it, and they showed it on their hobby roundup, which was really cool. A little bit of a bummer they didn't show the shield, which is the freehand design I did. And it also won a silver medal in the fantasy painters category of the National Capital Model Soldiers Society's virtual show this past weekend of March 13th. And so it was a pretty good weekend, a good week. For that miniature, at least, and the good thing is that we got Games Workshop to say listening to paint dry on their show.
Hey, you know what? We say their name all the time.
We say their name all the time. Yep, exactly, exactly. So that's on my plate, and then this project is almost done. I'm only going to mention it very briefly because it was so much fun. Is that in the dollar store I saw a Jack. And I said, oh, cute, Jack. And I looked at it, and it was a horrendous paint job. And I I'm going to be honest. While I do love Baby Yoda, to me, Jack Jack will always be the king. I love Jack Jack from the first Incredibles movie, the Jack Jack attacks, and the second Incredibles movie was a lot of fun because he's featured more in that movie, and he's one of my favorite superheroes of all time. I think he would have kicked Thanos' butt. It wouldn't even he would never had a chance to snap. Thanos would have been annihilated by Jack Jack, and so I have cleaned him up, removed him from this cheap little plastic oblong-looking surfboard base that they had him on. He has got a new display base. I removed all his mold lines. I couldn't remove the paint though, man. The paint that was, and it was just the head that was painted. The rest of the body was red plastic, like the Incredibles uniform. But the I don't even want to know what that had to have been, like Chinese lead paint or something, because I could not, even I tried mineral spirits, I tried 99% rubbing alcohol, I tried paint thinner. It said no, not going anywhere. So basically I took a fine sandpaper and just gave Jack Jack a smooth head. But otherwise, that's what it. I don't want to go into any other projects because we've been talking enough.
Secret. Yep.
No, not secret. No, nothing secret about it. But we've kind of. I feel like I've been going off. Like this is the episode where Mike won't shut up.
Well, I don't really have anything to say, so it's all right.
Well, that's cool. I guess with that, with this under our belt, we could probably do the outro now. I mean, do you have anything else you want to add, or is anything you're looking forward to? Oh, we did get word recently. The other day, the word came out that the Nova Open 2021 is officially canceled.
Yeah, but they will be coming out with something virtually, hopefully. More to come on that, because we'd hate to lose that. It's a pretty cool place. It's a good time.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, because it's really our only real local thing for us to do. So that really kind of sucks, but thanks, COVID.
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay, well, with that downer of a way to end the show.
Thanks, Mike.
That's what I'm here for. I'm Debbie Downer. All right, so why don't you start us off on our outro, Dan?
You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Listening to Paint Dry, or Twitter at Dry Painting. We also have a YouTube channel, which is appropriately titled Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan. Please like, subscribe, or follow wherever you get your podcast. And if you could leave us a review, that would be pretty awesome.
Drop us a line at listeningtopaintdry@gmail.com. Let us know how you're celebrating St. Patrick's Day and what you're working on. Personally, St. Patrick's Day is my youngest child's birthday. And so, like all good Irish families, we're going to Teppanyaki. It's a long story, but... anyways, a family joke. Nobody's going to get it. It's not even really that funny. But we'd love to see what you're working on. Let us know how we're doing on the show. Anything you'd like to see future content. Any artists you want us to try to get on the show, or topics of conversation, just let us know. Again, that's listeningtopaintdry@gmail.com. You know what, Dan? The beautiful thing is, you don't need the luck of the Irish to become a better, braver, happier painter. Until next time.
See ya, laddies.
Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan is a production of LTPTWMD. All rights reserved. No portion of this recording may be used without the express written consent of the host. The music is Death by a Thousand Questions by Springtide. Download from the Free Music Archive on a non-commercial attribution share-alike basis. All views and opinions expressed in the show are solely the views and opinions of the person who said them. All celebrity voices, if any, were impersonated and done so poorly.